The best way to build trust is to behave in ways that inspire it.
What's up, champions? Welcome to another episode of Champion Reads, where we talk about best-selling books and their best principles to help you out with your best lives. I'm William Blake, your host, and today we're also joined by John Kovacs Jr., the founder of Champion Circle. Super excited because we are jumping into the number 3 out of the top 4 books that you all enjoyed as an audience that we are going to go back to and review how we have applied it into our lives. So the book today, number 3, is The Speed of Trust by Stephen M.R. Covey. Man, what a good book. Like, trust is such a topic that is talked about, but not implemented. There we go. Haha, Willie got over dyslexia on that one. So very excited because the best way to build trust is to behave in ways that inspire it. So let's jump into it, John.
Yeah, I'm. It's no surprise to me this is one of the top books, because although it's like I'm just going to open up. Although it's almost like 330 pages long, this is a good thick read. But when we covered it, we covered some really interesting topics, and for me, this book is such a powerful tool. And I reflect like what you just said, and when you conquered dyslexia there a second ago, Willie. Trust is one of those things where it needs to be talked about more. And one of the major, and I guess first principles I think we wanted to review and talk about today is be your own anchor by trusting yourself. And this principle is all about keeping your own word and then becoming the first step in showing up as someone others can rely on. When I read that, it literally means integrity to me, like building integrity. And at Champion Circle, like, what's the most important principle of accountability? Number 1, personal accountability, aka having integrity with yourself and the goals that you set for yourself, because that is just a principle, an anchor, using this word here, an anchor in your lives. And so being your own anchor, trusting yourself, and then keeping your word to yourself, that's a principle. And I mean, I'll share after a year full of questions like, what do I do now? I've never been to this part of building a business like the one I'm building with Champion Circle or with everything that I'm doing. This has been a really, really good one, because at the end of the day, anchor yourself, be your foundation. Don't be on thin ice. There's an old children's song that says the wise man builds his house upon a rock. I can't believe I just quoted that on our podcast. But literally, when you build your house or you build your foundations on sand, you can expect it to wash away. And I don't mean this with any pun or with any disrespect or without any what's the word I'm looking for? Without any sympathy to those who live in Florida. This last year and Texas actually too. This last year we've had record hurricanes that have swept through the United States. And unfortunately, those houses that were right along the coastline, built on sand and pegs, they didn't make it. And there's reason for that. So building your foundations on yourself, trusting yourself, and being your own anchor. That's something that we all get to learn, don't you think, Willie?
Yeah, you gotta be the first person showing up for yourself. Like, you need to rely. I don't know if anyone knew this. You got to rely on yourself before other people can rely on you. That just, for me, seems common sense. I think about over the last several weeks, one of the things I do is I want to have at least 10,000 steps each day as I'm working on my health journey and working on losing 100 pounds. I realized that over the last couple of weeks, from holidays and getting sick and stuff, I wasn't walking on my treadmill, which is something I do every single morning. And so yesterday I woke up and I got on a morning call that I get on, and I'm like, I need to walk on the treadmill. So I got my socks and my tennis shoes and started walking on it. And then this morning, I felt exhausted from the lack of sleep. Kids are sick and staying up with them. But got my call this morning and I'm like, I need to walk because I committed to myself that I'm going to lose 100 pounds. And I can't do that if I don't do the simplest things, which is walking. So I jumped on the treadmill this morning and still have my tennis shoes on. And it's just crazy that like we need to be our own anchor, because as we trust ourselves, we keep our words, and that alone makes us stand out over 90% of the population.
Yeah, I'm going to lean in. And I love what you said, Willie. If you don't listen to yourself, if you don't trust yourself, who can you trust? I mean, you're in control of yourself and your life and your own things. And that's something that's powerful. And in this book, I luckily have a copy on me right now, The Speed of Trust. In this book, he talks about the successes of major companies and the transitions they made, and also the falling out of major companies. And this walks along the path of a story of a manager and a supervisor and a boss who truly learned the hard lessons. And look, you there's a difference between ego and trust. And ego is a confidence factor of your abilities, your capabilities, your beliefs, and your opportunities. But what this book, what trust is all about, is knowing where you stand. And I think that, like, whether you're a religious person or just a spiritual person altogether, and you don't have to be, but depending on what your foundation, your hope, and your faith are built on, for me, it has a lot to do with God, and it has a lot to do with the principle of desire. That is something that is truly a confidence builder. But at the same time, I have to believe that I know what I know because of what I've done. And this is a trust factor in myself. Trusting myself to trust my faith, my beliefs, is one of the most major and more important processes of developing as a human being, as a professional. And, it's interesting, Willie. I mean, this transitions really well into our next topic, I think, because, when you trust yourself, you do the work, and actions do speak louder than words, I think. And I'll just wrap that comment up by just saying, man, I think it's important that not only trust and integrity with yourself is something that you build as a foundation, but it's something that you apply every day. And we may have to work at this our entire lives. And that doesn't mean you're a weak foundation. It just means that you're confident and faithful and hopeful in your process, because you got to trust yourself. This is the process, but actions do speak louder than words. And I think many of the people of this world would agree with me. Don't you think?
Well, John, as someone who does this, I agree with you. You're like a radio broadcast. I agree with you, John. 100% that actions speak louder than words. Because I'll say this: a lot of people don't say the right words. And I think that's just because lack of training or lack of like a vision for what they're doing. Because as you get into like this, let's say the self-help industry and personal development, you start to use different words. Instead of can't, you use can. Instead of should, you use would. And you start using words that bring more action into it and more about the business and finance, everything that goes into it. I've also realized that once you get to that step, that there's another step between what you say and what you do. And that's a break off for a lot of people who are already in the industry that we have, because they say they're going to do one thing. They say we can either get on their podcast, or that we can partner in a business, or that we can have an opportunity with them to speak at their event or whatnot. And then weeks go by, hear nothing about it. And then when we get the courage of being like, well, I thought they were going to follow up, but let me follow up with them. You follow up with them and be like, oh yeah, we can do it. And then more weeks go by, and then it gets so long to where you kind of just drop it off and say, I'm sorry. I'm I'm just going to keep going on with my life. And there's like, oh no, we can do it. And it's just a rabbit hole. But the ones that stand out above everyone else are the ones who follow through. The ones that even on the smallest of promises show up for themselves and show up constantly. And I think that is one of the major differences I've learned and applied this year is when it comes to the words that I use, I need to be very careful with them because I want to not be in a place to where I say something and then can't produce it on the other side. So now I'm at this point to where I'm still working on it, but at the point to where whatever I say I'm going to do, I get it done. And it was a long process, but I'm so grateful I'm at that point now because now we're getting things done. Actions are occurring and transactions are actually transactioning.
Well, I too have realized that trust isn't built by what I say, but rather by showing up consistently and following through on even the smallest promises. Yes, I just read that. It so is summing up like exactly what this means for me. And, this year I've had a lot of really good hard lessons as both an individual, a friend, a family member, and a business owner. And I'll tell kind of the opposite end of the spectrum. When you are in a leadership position and you have to approach a situation where apologies must be made, you can apply all the principles you can learn from the book, How to Win Friends and Influence People, right? And you can use leadership concepts, tactics of negotiations from Maxwell's books. You can use all of these amazing principles, but at the bottom line, your words aren't necessarily going to be what the person feels as part of that forgiveness. They're going to see forgiveness really be handed out to you when you show them through action. And there have been several times where I told someone I would get something done by a certain time or date, and due to whatever reasons they might be, we didn't fulfill within that timeline. And that was a hard realization to come to, because now you see yourself saying, wow, I told them one thing, we did the other. And so now I have to rebuild trust, or I need to show them through the smallest promises that we'll be able to still make their project come to fruition even greater. And I love living by the principles of, under promise and over deliver. And sometimes you have to do that by really stretching out your timelines and saying, hey, I'm emailing you 3 weeks in advance to the deadline and saying, look at this, we're ahead of schedule. And giving yourself those expectations can actually help you build trust faster. And that's why it's called the speed of trust, because you need speed involved in this. Ka-chow! Like Lightning McQueen.
Ka-chow, kaboom! The speed of trust. There we go. Boom. Mic drop. It's it's funny you say that, because that leads into the third point of trust begets trust. If you trust somebody and put your trust in them, it builds a stronger relationship, and from that can interest into things that you didn't even know about. I'll tell a quick little snippet of a story of this guy whose name is John Kovacs Jr., this wonderful individual who back in 2019 found this ruffian little dude who didn't know much about business, met at a Starbucks, named Willie. And he was so passionate, so on fire with what he wanted to do, but didn't have much experience on hands-on stuff. So this guy named John's like, hey, come on as one of our sales individuals. And so he jumped on and through different sales and apprenticeships to being able to help out. This guy named John put so much trust in Willie, so much trust that Willie felt very committed to helping John out, to which then it begat Champion Circle, which then it begat the different projects that we do with Champion Reads and John, Your Circle of Knowledge podcast, through being able to help members and accountability and coaching and all these different things that have occurred. Not that they wouldn't have happened if we didn't meet back 5 years ago, but that day when you put trust into me, it's deepened a relationship that I have thoroughly enjoyed the last 5 years. So there are times where we should, and I think more often than not, should take that leap to trust in other people, because it builds that stronger relationship and it truly can bring the best out of people.
Oh, I love that story, Willie. And mainly because, for every story, there's two sides to that story, right? And you couldn't be more right. Like that really has been part of the genesis of what we're creating, and that trust was built by offering that hand of opportunity. But this temple of knowledge is being built brick by brick, and it's done through relationships. And to build onto that trust begets trust principle. Um, i had a you know i had a, a mentor before I started this business, who taught me the principle of leading relationships through perpetual relationships. The hierarchy of relationships started at transactional relationships, which is, here's my product, pay for it. Or I cook food, you eat it, that kind of thing. Like just very, very basic, rudimentary, caveman like relationships, no depth. But then there's a hierarchy to that where you go to the next step of relationship levels, which is the reciprocal level. And this is where strategic bonds are created. This is where agreements are founded. But it still is not the greatest in the relationship hierarchy, because while reciprocal relationships are a really, really great boundary creator and also a relationship builder, bonds can be broken, agreements can be walked over, and sometimes our relationships are built on these, and it's not the healthiest long-term relationship. But when you just wipe your hands clean of transactions and reciprocity, and you just serve openly with the perpetual mindset that, hey, I I can have anything in this world, to quote Zig Ziglar, right? I can have anything in this world if I help enough people get what they want first. And if you just live by that principle, perpetually you're giving. Now, you may want to surround yourself with people who are less takers and more giver backers, but at the same time too, just that evaluation of your foundation. I mean, going back to the first principle here, knowing your anchors and then speaking, your actions speak louder than words. These principles all build on one another, giving you a perpetual mindset. So to build off of what you said, Willie, you really got to live perpetually with your relationships, give openly, and watch what amazing things will come out of it. I've got one of the greatest friends in the world when it comes to being with Willie Blake. And I've had that's you, brother. and,
Oh, okay.
and that is stemmed with that. What are the results of that? Well, confidence that no matter what we're going through, we're going to build something that's going to outlive us. We're going to create a project that is going to serve mankind. And look at us, thousands of views later, and podcast episode after podcast episode, and growth of our own knowledge and mindsets and relationships. So much has built off of that. And I'm so glad I doubled down on that principle. So I give credit to those who've taught me the lessons of trusting others while putting your best foot forward and trusting the process and trusting the universe and trusting God and everything, because your relationships do matter. But perpetually, as long as you believe that, you're heading in the growth mindset direction.
And that's it. Just believe in it. Start believing it and start doing it. Be, as we talked about, be your own anchor. Start trusting yourself and what you're doing. And not only in the words you say, but start taking action on them, because actions speak louder than words. And as you go out and you start following through, even on the smallest promises, well, then you'll realize that as you interact with people that you're going to build trust. And it's because you started trusting other people first. So this is a wonderful book. I'm glad that we're able to talk about it again, because it's just such a great one. Stephen M.R. Covey made a great book. So thank you, champions, for listening to this wonderful episode. If you found inspiration in it on this, the third book of our top 4 books that are on this wonderful podcast, go ahead and subscribe to our podcast, Champion Reads. You can find us on all the major podcasting platforms, as well as you can go to our website, mychampionscircle.com, and there you'll be able to find link to our podcast, the links to our socials, as well as everything else going in the Champion Circle universe. Until next time, champions, continue to be awesome. Continue to be the champion in your own lives. And always remember that as you build relationships, trust yourself and take the actions that are needed, that you will be building relationships and living your life at the speed of trust. We'll see you at the next episode of Champion Reads.